Why do we hate characters? Well, for the same reason we hate human beings, because they do things we don't like. My bullies hated me because I breathed, father hated me because I was born, and my last girlfriend hated me because I wasn't her ex. When someone continues to take actions that you don't approve of, you build negative sentiment towards that person, and the more extreme the actions they take are, the faster disapproval turns to outright hate. While society and common sense have conspired to convince people that hate is bad, today I'm here to say that's wrong. For legal reasons, I must clarify that I only endorse hate towards fictional characters, men below 6 foot, and whoever invented taxes. Hating fictional characters is a good thing because that signifies your investment in a story. Let's consider these two hypotheticals. Scenario 1. We have a main character who's content with her marriage. She is a faithful wife, a righteous empress, and an overall compelling character. You like her. One day,
Your Majesty, the Emperor has brought a girl into the palace. They say he brought her in to recover from an accidental injury, but she remains even now that her health has returned. I'm sure there's nothing going on. I trust my husband.
While the main character tries to show understanding and ignore her husband's new mistress, Madame Homewrecker intentionally and continuously violates her boundaries, disrespects her, and plots to take everything that is hers. This wickedness ultimately leads to our protagonist being expelled from the palace to live a life of shame, while her husband's paramour replaces her as Empress and uses her powers exclusively for her own benefit. Scenario 2. We have a main character who's unfulfilled by her marriage. She's still a faithful wife, but she's a lackluster ruler. She isn't a bad person and you understand her struggles, so you approve of her as a protagonist. One day,
Your Majesty, the Emperor has brought a girl into the palace. They say she was injured preventing a wild beast from harming His Majesty, but she remains even now that her health has returned. If she has done so good a deed, she surely should be rewarded. Arrange a gift to be sent on my behalf. She's welcome to remain in the palace as long as she likes. But His Majesty has visited frequently and even delivers each of her meals personally. What if she comes to threaten your position? It is nothing unusual for the Emperor to have a concubine or two. With the passion of our youth having faded, I prefer this for him over forcing him to share in my emptiness.
the Empress and the mistress are able to remain on friendly terms, and it becomes known that the mystery girl has a talent for handling imperial affairs superior to that of the Empress herself. The Emperor officially appoints the lass as the Empress's aide, but in reality, she assumes all the duties ordinarily meant for Her Majesty. Our protagonist now spends her days living in idle luxury, but feels hollow because the job she wasn't the best at and husband she didn't really love are now in the hands of a woman she can't help but respect. Of these two contrasting scenarios, the latter was made up and the former was actually the plot of the Remarried Empress. As I was saying, we have two stories, one in which a femme fatale steals everything the Empress has for herself, and one in which a self-sacrificing sweetheart allows the Empress to keep her title but nothing else. Because the Empress is our protagonist, the story will seek a resolution that rewards her for enduring hardship. In the Remarried Empress, protagonist Navier gets divorced, but immediately marries the ruler of the neighboring kingdom, finding true love and respect, while the marriage between her betrayers suffers and her enemy Rashta destroys everything she fought to steal. There's a clear villain who gets punished, an obvious hero who enjoys prosperity, and a happy audience satisfied to see the target of their scorn receive their just desserts. There's some interesting psychology at play here, but we'll get to that in just a second. What of scenario 2? Well, that's more complicated. There isn't a clear bad guy. No one has done anything wrong. It's hard to sympathize with the protagonist if she still gets to live a life of luxury, admired by her people, and it's for the good of the entire empire if the most competent person possible is in charge, so reassigning her duties only makes sense. On top of that, she had fallen out of love with her husband, so we can't say she was wronged on that front either. Whether the protagonist or the mistress ends up giving something valuable for the sake of the other, the readers won't really be happy because it feels like a good person is destined to suffer. No one wins, neither the viewers nor any of the characters. That's where hate comes in. I promised some psychology, and here it is. The reason human beings have the emotion we call hate is for self-preservation. It's one of the many variations of anger we're capable of feeling, and it's triggered whenever something violates our values. In the past, our values boiled down to being alive, so we hated the winter which froze us, the predators which killed us, the insects that ruined crops, and the rodents that spread disease. Now, modern civilization has mostly erased those problems for the common man, so our values instead represent our principles. We hate those who are greedy, those who harm others, those who fit our personal definitions of evil. Now, what does this have to do with the home-wrecking mistress? Well, as I said, hate exists for self-preservation, so your body rewards you when you listen to it. Acting successfully against the target of your enmity brings you joy, and continuous failure to do anything about something you hate causes depression. By exploiting this psychological mechanism, writers are able to create the highest highs for their audience, and that's why tales of heroes overcoming villains will never die out. That's not to say it's a cheap tactic, though. Hating a character shows you're invested in a story. If we didn't care about Bam, Rachel wouldn't be public enemy numero uno. That's Spanish for Tower of God is a banger. If you've watched it, you need to read it. If you haven't watched it, you need to read it. If you've read it, you need to read it again. For those unaware, this webtoon follows a naive young boy, Bam, who knows nothing about the world. He was born in a tiny little hole, alone somehow? Don't ask me, it's not important. And the only person he ever knew was this girl, Rachel. Rachel has dreams. She doesn't wish for her entire life to be confined to a dark and dreary cave where she just exists. She wishes to climb the tower and see the stars that await her at the very top. It's all she longs for. Bam, on the other hand, thinks that's silly. Rachel is all he has, and the only happiness he ever feels, the only time he's ever content, is when she visits to break his solitude. Bam doesn't want or need anything other than Rachel, so when the story begins with Rachel's goodbye as she enters the tower, his worst nightmare comes true. Now, due to the nature of this video, I'll have to discuss the reason Rachel is hated in the first place, and that'll require me to spoil the end of Season 1, so consider yourself warned. At this point, that's barely more than 10% of the story though, so if you aren't sold on the story yet, keep watching as I discuss this character who isn't given enough credit for how complex she is. Right before Bam's eyes, Rachel is welcomed by the tower's embrace, and just as he wishes with all his heart, he too is taken that he may pursue her. Entering after Rachel, Bam wishes neither to be expelled from the tower and lose her forever, nor delay long enough to never catch up, so he tries his best, test after test, to pass and progress. Before long, he's made his first friends and encountered Rachel. He calls out to her. She ignores him. She's in danger. He sacrifices himself. He tries to connect. She conceals her identity. She faces death. He saves her. Her dream is in danger. He takes it upon himself to make it come true. As fiercely as he opposes the idea of climbing this tower that only seeks to set men against one another, Bam accepts that Rachel would be incomplete if not allowed to chase her dreams, so he determines himself to carry her to the top of the tower even after she is tragically crippled and has no hope of ever being able to do anything for herself. Only she's lying about her injury, jealous of Bam for being talented and popular, and decides she can remain the main character if she secretly pushes him to his death and exploits his friends to all carry her together. This is only the first of a series of betrayals that gained this character her infamy, and at every opportunity we have to learn more about her, she becomes less and less forgivable. Our hatred for her grows stronger. Listen, I'll admit that she only makes human decisions. Most of you watching would probably have done at least half of the bad things she did when placed in the same situation, and that genuine humanity likely contributes to her being the author's favorite character, but that doesn't make her actions any less wrong or any easier to accept. We hate Rashta because she selfishly carries out malicious acts. We hate Rachel because of the fundamental attribution error. There's a lesson here, and not just in the literal, allow me to explain that term sense. Why is hating antagonistic characters a good thing? I said it makes you happier when they lose. It shows you're invested in the story, because for you to care that characters are violating your values, there have to be victims you're upset are being harmed. And finally, because hating characters helps you be a better person. The fundamental attribution error, the tendency to blame someone else's personality for their actions and blame our own bad deeds on external circumstances. I cheated because my relationship was draining, she cheated because she's a... In the case of Rachel, she betrayed Bam because she was exploited. She entered the tower and was faced with a trial that was, through no fault of her own, impossible to beat. She's told that she can skip this test that would kill either her or her dreams forever if she stops Bam from ascending the tower. She knows, because he told her, that Bam doesn't want to climb the tower. From the moment this deal is offered to her, she knows that Bam's dream of being with her is impossible because she either stops climbing the tower right there or kicks him down the moment they meet. It's impossible for her not to say yes, so she agrees and is permanently made a villain for it. I'm not trying to say she's a saint, and she's certainly guilty of enough evil to warrant negative public sentiment, but some of what she's done isn't because she wanted to hurt people, and I think what we can all take away from that is that we should consider how our actions, even when we feel backed into a corner, might affect or be perceived by others, and conversely, we should consider why others do the things we do. Thanks for watching. This has been Kenchan hating short people.